Due to production delays, as I missed the Friday YouTube premiere plan and it's already Saturday, it's also a blessing in disguise. Why? Because it is pañcami today on a Saturday, both specifically auspicious to Vārāhi. So, I have retitled our latest video as E576 Boar Boring Bored Body ID to Blissful Being. So, under Gilt Sow Vārāhi pañcami this Saturday, Gupta Navaratri, replacing its original title yesterday. That was Ashada Shukravara and Adi Velli's potent combo. In fact, the first of both of them at Manipura, seasoned by mystical Ketus, Magha Nakshatra at Anartha, and iced by Masa Shukla Vinayaka Chaturthi at Swa Adhisthana, Vyatipata Yoga at Vishuddhi, and Vanija Karanam at Muladhara. Om Vārāhi Sarvato Mam Raksha Raksha Durge Hum Fat Swaha Mahisha Vahinyai Cha Vidmahe Dandahastayai Cha Dhimahi Tanno Vārāhi Prachodayat Mahisha Dhvajayai Cha Vidmahe Dandahastayai Cha Dhimahi Tanno Vārāhi Prachodayat. Brihad Vārāhi Mantra Viniyogaha Asya Shri Brihad Vārāhi Mahamantrasya Brahma Rishihi Gayatri Chandaha Shri Brihad Vārāhi Devata Glaum Bijam Aim Shakti Taha 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 Kilakam Mama Akhilaptaye Chape Viniyoga Karanyasaha Aum Aim Glaum Aim Aum Namo Bhagavati Vārtāli Angushtabhyam Namaha Aum Vārāhi Tajjanibhyam Namaha Aum Varaha Mukhi Madhyamabhyam Namaha Aum Andhini Namaha Anamikabhyam Namaha Aum Rundini Namaha Ganishtikabhyam Namaha Aum Jambini Namaha Karatalakara Prishtabhyam Namaha Iti Karanyasaha Shad Anganyasaha Aum Aim Glaum Aim Aum Namo Bhagavati Vārtāli Hridayaya Namaha Aum Vārāhi Shirase Swaha Aum Varaha Mukhi Shikayai Vamshat Aum Andhini Namaha Kavachaya Ghum Aum Rundini Namaha Netratrayaya Vamshat Aum Jambini Namaha Astraya Fat Iti Anganyasaha Purvuvaswaro Miti Digbandha Dhyanam Raktam Bhuje Pretavarāsanastha Arthorukam Bhatika Sanastha Damstrolasat Otrivukha Ravindha Kotira Sanchinna Himam Shureka Halam Kapalam Dadati Karabhyam Pavetarabhyam मुसलेष्टधौ च रक्ताम्भरां रक्तपटोत्तरीयां प्रवालकर्णाभरणां त्रिनेत्रां श्यामां समस्ताभरण स्रगाढ्यां वाराहि संज्ञां प्रणमामि नित्यम्। पंचपूजा। लं प्रत्यात्मिकायै गन्धं समर्पयामि। हुं आकाशात्मिकायै पुष्पैः पूजयामि। यं वाय्वात्मिकायै धूपमाग्रापयामि। रं अज्ञात्मिकायै दीपं दर्शयामि। वं अमृतात्मिकायै अमृतं महानैवेद्यं निवेदयामि। सर्वात्मिकायै सर्वोपचारपूजां समर्पयामि। जपमाला मंत्रम्। ॐ महामाले महामाये सर्वमन्त्रस्वरूपिणी चतुर्वर्गस्त्वयि नस्तस्मान्ये सिद्धिदा भव। गुरुमन्त्र। ॐ ह्रीं सिद्धगुरो प्रसीद ह्रीं ॐ। चतुर्विंशोत्तरशत्यक्षरी मंत्र। ऐं ग्लौं ऐं ॐ नमो भगवती वार्ताळि वार्ताळि वाराहि वाराहि वराहमुखि वराहमुखि। ऐं ग्लौं ऐं अन्धे अन्धिनि नमः। रुन्धे रुन्धिनि नमः। जम्भे जम्बिनि नमः। मोहे मोहिनि नमः। स्तम्भे स्तम्भिनि नमः। ऐं ग्लौं ऐं सर्वदुष्टप्रदुष्टानां सर्वेषां सर्ववाक्चित्त चक्षुर्मुखगतिजिह्वा स्तम्भनं कुरु कुरु शीघ्रं पश्य। ऐं ग्लौं ऐं टः 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 हुं फट् स्वाहा। षडङ्गन्यासः। ॐ ऐं ग्लौं ऐं ॐ नमो भगवती वार्ताळि वार्ताळि हृदयाय नमः। ॐ वाराहि वाराहि शिरसे स्वाहा। ॐ वराहमुखि वराहमुखि शिखायै वौषट्। Aum Ande Andini Namaha Kavachaya Hum. Aum Rundhe Rundhini Namaha Netratrayaya Bhaushat. Aum Jambhe Jambhini Astraya Fat Iti Shadanganyasaham Bhūrbhuvassuvarho Iti Dhikvimokaha Dhyanam Raktambuje Pritavarasanas Tam Attoruka Papatika Sanasta Dhamstrolasat Otri Mukaravinda Kotira Sanchinna Imam Shureka Halam Kapalam Dadati Karabhyam Amitarabyam Musalishtabhau cha Raktambaram Rakta Pato Tatpriyam Prabala Karnabha Ranam Trinetram Shyamam Samastabha Rana Sagadhyam Vārāhi Samyam Pranamami Nityam. Panchapuja Nam Pratyatmikayai Gandham Samarpayam Akashatmikayai Pushpaihi Pujayam Yam Vaivatmikayai Dhupamagrapayam Ram Agni Atmikayai Deepam Darshayami Vam Amrutatmikayai Amrutam Mahanaivedyam Nivedayami Samsarvatmikayai Sarvopachara Puja Samarpayami. Samarpanam Guhyati Guhya Goptritvam Gruhanasmat Krutam Japam Siddhir Bhavatu Me Devi Tvat Prasadan Mayi Stira. Japanantaram Mala Mantram Shloka Aum Tvam Male Sarvadeva Nam Pritidha Shubhadha Bhavam Shubham Kurushyame Bhadre Yasho Viryam Cha Dehi Me. Aum Hrim Siddhyai Namaha. Namaskaram and Jai Hind, folks. Welcome to Katham.in's episode number 576, E576 Boar, boring, bored body ID to blissful being. Sounder, Gilt Sow, Vārāhi pañcami Saturday. Gupta Navaratri after yesterday's Sada Shukravara and Adi Velli, seasoned by mystical Ketus, Maga Nakshatra and Anahata, and iced by Masa Shukla Vinayaka Chaturthi at Swa Adhisthana Vyatipata Yoga at Vishuddhi and Manijakarana at Mooladhara. Yesterday and today are two of those delightfully ridiculous days when the calendar seems to have conspired with the cosmos. Just look at yesterday's ingredients. We had Gupta Vārahi Navaratris Chaturthi, Ashada Shukravara, Adi Velli. What more do you need? Our mystical nature projected out as the southern lunar node, represented by Ketu, quietly camping along with our mind in its own Maga Nakshatra, Vinayaka Chaturthi, Vyatipata Yoga, Vanija Karana. If this were a cooking show, which it isn't, the universe has apparently decided today, let us throw everything into one gigantic pressure cooker and see what consciousness does. Fortunately for us, consciousness never explodes. Only the ego whistles. In the B-roll, you'll be seeing wide aerial shots of the terrace forest. With the morning breeze, you can't see the birds, and I'm gently swinging. Many of us become excited whenever several rare astronomical combinations happen together, and you can sense it even without knowing it. Some immediately search, what benefits shall we receive? Others ask, what should we avoid today? Still others begin searching for the nearest spiritual discount sale. Buy one mantra, get 3 blessings free. Fortunately, consciousness has never operated like an online shopping website, Amazon or Flipkart. Today's combination is certainly fascinating, but not because the universe suddenly becomes more compassionate for 24 hours, nor because some mysterious cosmic VIP gate opens exclusively today. Rather, today simply becomes an unusually beautiful reminder to look inward. Our telescope has become extraordinarily powerful. Our particle accelerators have become unbelievably sophisticated. Our artificial intelligence AI has become astonishing. Yet, the instrument through which every single observation finally occurs is our own awareness, still remains surprisingly under-investigated, at least in the West. That is rather like purchasing the world's most expensive camera without ever removing the lens cap. In the B-roll, you'd have observed close-ups of my hammock. You can see it here too. This evening, while comfortably swinging on this hammock inside our little terrace forest, Patrada Vasantavanam, I thought, instead of merely discussing today's calendar, why not allow today's rare combination to become an excuse. Excuse for what? For taking a relaxed tour through our own 16 chakra architecture, not as something to believe, not even as something to reject, because that's also a belief, simply as something to investigate scientifically, meditatively, playfully. That's how I've always worked. After all, the greatest laboratory available to us has always accompanied us wherever we go. It even arrived before our birth certificate. It will probably leave after our obituary and death certificate. We call it ourself. In the B-roll, you would have seen the first mudra. Today, our gentle companions will be these 16 chakra mudras. Actually 10, because I'm going to repeat. Nothing dramatic. No theatrical facial expressions. No attempts to look spiritually photogenic. The mudras merely help our attention. Notice, where awareness is already capable of resting, like placing a bookmark inside our own consciousness, ourself, Atma, Paramatma. Now, before anyone asks, "No, Professor, have you really become convinced that Goddess vārāhi literally lives somewhere inside the spine?" Let us pause. That question itself quietly assumes something fascinating. It assumes that symbols and reality must always be different. Advaita politely smiles and asks, "Must they?" Suppose I tell someone the heart is a pump. No engineer becomes offended. No cardiologist rushes into the room shouting, "It is not literally a water pump." Everyone understands. It is simultaneously true and metaphorical. Exactly the same elegance appears throughout our oldest contemplative literature. The sages never suffered from the modern disease of insisting either literally true or completely symbolic. Reality rarely behaves so politely. The astonishing brilliance of our rishis lay elsewhere. They realized that every external image could become an internal operating manual, which brings us to today's delightful heroine, Vārāhi. Vārāhi, yes, the boar-faced one. Before anyone starts wondering, "No, Professor, why would ultimate consciousness choose a wild pig?" Excellent question. In fact, it is exactly the right question, because that single question opens an entire universe. In the B-roll, you would have seen the second mudra. If we merely stop at mythology, We miss the engineering, technology, science. If we merely stop at philosophy, we miss the experience. If we merely stop at neuroscience, we miss consciousness. If we integrate all three, something extraordinary begins happening. I'm saying it from experience, trust me. My original intent for today's episode began with a beautiful quotation from the Bhavanopanishad describing Vārāhi Pitrurupa Kurukul Balidevata Mata. Instead of immediately translating every word, let us first ask, what kind of intelligence repeatedly chooses the image of a boar to describe one of consciousness' most transformative powers? Because once we understand that, the entire verse suddenly becomes obvious. And surprisingly, the answer has almost nothing to do with zoology. It has everything to do with excavation, drilling through. Imagine the world's most advanced tunnel boring machine, not digging through granite, not drilling through mountains, but quietly, patiently boring through layer after layer of conditioning, habit, fear, memory, identity. Nothing remains at the end except pure awareness itself. That, that is where our journey even begins. Not underground, not in quieter outer space, not inside somebody else's philosophy, including mine. Inside the only laboratory that is accessible to you, that none of us can ever leave, in fact, our own awareness. Why would infinite consciousness choose a boar? In the B-roll, you have already observed me gently swinging on the hammock. Morning breeze is unseen but evident from my close-up of the leaves moving. Before we continue, let me ask a slightly uncomfortable question. When was the last time we genuinely changed our mind? Genuinely. Not merely our opinion, our mind itself. Exactly. That is considerably harder, or so it seems. Most of us proudly announce, I am extremely open minded. Then somebody disagrees with us, and suddenly our open mind, within quotes, develops reinforced concrete walls, earthquake resistant foundations, and biometric security. Apparently, our opinions are permanent residents, if not citizens, while new evidence requires a visitor's visa. That is precisely why our rishis loved symbols. A good symbol metaphor quietly slips past the intellectual security guards and reaches places where arguments never can the heart. Which brings us back to vārāhi. Why a boar, a wild pig? Why not a graceful swan, or a majestic lion, or a soaring eagle? Surely the supreme intelligence had plenty of zoological options out of its own creation, because a boar possesses one extraordinary characteristic. When it finds something valuable beneath the ground, it does not stand above the soil, philosophizing about excavation. It digs relentlessly, patiently, powerfully, and that is exactly what genuine sadhana looks like. Less motivational speaking, more excavation. In the B-roll, you would have seen my first mudra, the lowest tala chakra. We went to this. Now, suppose we borrow a little language from engineering at the Pathala Chakra. After all, engineering has always fascinated me. Imagine the world's most advanced tunnel boring machine. Its mission is simple: reach bedrock, not by exploding mountains, not by fighting the mountain, not by hating the mountain, simply by understanding how mountains work. Isn't that remarkably similar to consciousness? Think. We are not trying to destroy the ego. Observe. That would merely create an ego proud of having destroyed the ego. Quite an achievement. One's false identity replacing another for something that supposedly disappeared. Never does. Instead, we understand it. Then it disappears, dissolves. Observe it. Smile at it. Watch it become increasingly transparent, like the movie on the white screen. Just a projection. The drilling machine never hates the rock. The microscope never hates the specimen. The telescope never hates the galaxy. Likewise, awareness never hates the mind. It simply illuminates it so it can disappear all by itself. That is why the image of vārāhi suddenly becomes astonishingly elegant. She is not someone else. She is not somewhere else. She is not waiting for an invitation card. She is the unstoppable tendency within awareness itself to do what? To excavate deeper, deeper, deeper. Our video quotes the beautiful expression vārāhi pitrurupa kurukulla bhalidevata mata. Instead of reading or listening to it merely as mythology or a mantra, let us read or listen to it like systems engineering. One aspect stabilizes, another transforms. One provides structure, another provides adaptability. One gives direction, another dissolves unnecessary resistance. Together, they function rather like hardware and software. Neither is superior, neither functions alone. In the B roll, you would see my second mudra. Now, something even more fascinating happens. Our ancient texts repeatedly whisper, almost mischievously, the same astonishing observation. Yatha pinde tatha brahmande. As within this body, so within the cosmos. Not poetry, not wishful thinking, atom and galaxy, an investigational hypothesis. Modern science already accepts this style of thinking, quantum mechanics and relativist, in wind tunnels, scale models, digital twins, finite element simulations, uncertainty principle, protein folding models, cosmological simulations. Nobody objects. Yet, when ancient contemplatives suggested that consciousness itself may contain a scale model of reality, suddenly we become nervous. Perhaps our ancestors were not being primitive. Perhaps they were simply using a different laboratory. In the B roll, you'd have seen a slow transition from the lower mudras upward and vice versa. Today, physicists tell us something rather delightful. Nearly 95% of the observable universe consists of components we simply cannot directly observe. We call them dark matter and dark energy. Wonderful names, extremely honest names. They simply mean we know something profound is happening. We just do not yet fully understand it. Science advances precisely because it is willing to admit, I don't know. That humility is science at its best, not a show off, but true. From the perspective of contemplative experience, many sadhakas have long employed symbolic language to point towards vast unmanifest aspects of reality. Some traditions poetically associate Mahakali with the immeasurable dynamism of manifestation and Mahakala with the unfathomable ground that supports it. These are contemplative metaphors, not scientific identifications. They invite reflection rather than claiming that the deities are literally identical to the physical phenomena described by cosmology. The language differs. The investigation continues. In the B roll, you'd have observed my third mudra, the Rudra mudra, at the Sahasrara. Now let us return. the digging is started to our own body. Or perhaps let us return to our own operating system. Because body is almost too small a word, a four-letter word at that. Imagine that awareness wishes to investigate itself. How should it proceed? Would it immediately jump to the thousand-petaled Sahasrara? Probably not. Every skyscraper begins below ground level. As you can see, new ones coming up there. Likewise, our journey begins at Moola Adhara, not because it is inferior, but because every stable ascent requires stable foundations. And this is where our delightful cosmic drilling engineer begins smiling, not because there is darkness below, but because buried treasure is always found underground, all the way at the Patala Chakra of our feet. Perhaps the greatest obstacle has never been darkness. Perhaps it has simply been unexamined depth. In the B-roll, you would have seen my camera slowly moving upward across the trees. So, over the next few minutes, as we gently explore each of these 16 centers using nothing more dramatic than relaxed attention, witnessing simple mudras, steady breathing, slow, cheerful curiosity. Let us resist the temptation to achieve anything, because consciousness does not award gold medals. It's not goal oriented, it is process oriented. It simply becomes progressively unobstructed. And once that happens, the drilling machine quietly disappears. Only open space remains. Vārāhi, the world's oldest tunnel boring machine. In my B-rolls, you have observed close-ups of the tree roots emerging naturally from the soil. Slow pan across the stones, moss and leaves. Only thing missing is a soft instrumental ambience, as I don't want anything competing with my inner voice reaching your inner ears, because this is so significant. Now, let me confess something. As an aerospace engineer, I have a tiny professional weakness. Whenever I encounter an ancient Sanskrit word, I instinctively begin reverse engineering it. Not what should I believe, but what design problem was this word trying to solve? The word vārāhi is one such engineering marvel. Most dictionaries stop after saying it means the female form of the boar, which is a sow or gilt. Technically, they are correct. But That is about as informative as saying a rocket is merely a long metal cylinder. True, yet spectacularly incomplete. Today, not even true because it's made out of composites usually. Every Sanskrit word, particularly in the Upanishadic and Tantric traditions, behaves less like a dictionary entry and more like compressed software. Zip, tiny package, gigantic executable as in quantum computing. So let us slowly decompress it, unzip it. First syllable, va in vārāhi. The first lower chakra mudra, of course, is the pathala. The verbal root is closely associated with ideas such as covering, enveloping, containing, protecting, supporting. Immediately, a fascinating question appears. What is the one thing that silently contains every thought? Awareness, of course, consciousness, Atma, Paramatma, whatever you call it. What contains happiness? Awareness, ourself. What contains sadness? Awareness. What contains success? Failure, meditation, distraction, even confusion? Exactly. Awareness, awareness, awareness. Never complains. I refuse to contain today's thoughts. It never says that. It simply accommodates everything, like space itself, not a trash can. Imagine a cinema screen. Thousands of movies appear, one after the other. Explosions, romance, comedy. The genre itself changes: science fiction, documentaries. The screen never says, enough, I am tired of superhero films. Awareness is remarkably similar. It contains everything without becoming any of it. That is va in vārāhi. Pause and think. The second syllable, ra in vārāhi. In the B roll, we go to the second mudra, which is also the vayu, apana mudra. Instead of merely containing something, begins moving. Something begins revealing. Something begins bringing hidden things to the surface. A boar, a wild pig, or a sow, or a gilt never politely dusts the ground. It uproots it. Imagine asking a wild boar, would you kindly excavate only the top 2 millimeters? The boar replies, I don't do superficial. Neither does genuine inquiry. Digs deep. Most of us, when we meditate, dhyana, secretly hope that only pleasant memories appear. Consciousness quietly smiles and says, no opposites, no antonyms. Oh, you wanted the deluxe package? Then It lovingly begins excavating everything, old fears, old ambitions, old identities, old victories that we still refuse to retire. Even that argument from 17 years ago, which somehow still receives free accommodation inside our head. Apparently, memory believes rent is permanently waived. Real sadhana is not deleting memories, it is deleting their compulsory authority, coming when you don't need them. The event may remain, the suffering gradually loses administrative power. No longer this is admin. That is excavation, my dear friends. The third syllable, he in vārāhi, in the B roll, you would have seen my third mudra, which still is the Apanavayu mudra. Now comes my favorite part. Without this ending, we merely have an idea. With it, the idea becomes dynamic, alive, functioning, moving. Think of electricity. A beautifully designed computer without electrical power remains an expensive paperweight. Likewise, wisdom without lived experience becomes an attractive bookshelf, a philosophy. Try. The ending, he in vārāhi, beautifully reminds us that consciousness is never merely static. It is intrinsically expressive, living, radiant, creative. Put all three together. Va, infinite accommodation. Ra, fearless excavation. He, living transformation. Suddenly, the word vārāhi is no longer describing somebody. It is describing something awareness naturally does. And now, our engineering analogy becomes almost irresistible. Imagine the world's most intelligent drilling machine. Its drill bit is curiosity. Its motor is attention driving it. Its steering algorithm is discrimination. You can't go in all directions, right? You have to go vertically down. Its cooling system is compassion, without which drilling is not good enough. Its lubrication is humor. Yes, humor. Because if we cannot occasionally laugh and laugh out loud at that, at our own false identities, that is ego, the drilling machine overheats. The ego is wonderfully inventive. One day it says, I am superior. The next day, I am inferior. Superiority and inferiority complexes. Notice something fascinating. The sentence changed. The word I did not. I am inferior, I am superior. Advaita gently asks, who exactly is this I appearing in every sentence? That investigation can take lifetimes. Is considerably more interesting than deciding whether we are successful, unsuccessful, spiritual, materialistic, or somewhere delightfully confused in between. In my B-rolls, you would have already observed that my camera slowly rises from the tree roots to the canopy. Now, our video introduces another beautiful insight. It describes Vārahi not as a static icon, but as a force capable of drilling through the subtle and causal layers of experience. That imagery is astonishingly modern. Today, engineers drill beneath oceans. Geologists drill through kilometers of rock. Surgeons navigate blood vessels thinner than a millimeter. Particle physicists investigate matter smaller than atoms. Ancient contemplators asked an equally audacious question. Can awareness investigate awareness itself? Subjectivity, you see. No telescope required, no satellite required, so not even tools, no particle accelerators required, only steady observation through the third eye, and perhaps just enough patience, Saturday today, to stop interrupting ourselves every 12 seconds. Which brings us to the 16 centers that we shall gently explore, top down, bottom up, using these mudras. Notice, I deliberately avoid saying that we are activating anything. The Kundalini schools. Awareness does not require activation, my dear friends. Already activated. Rather, our attention becomes progressively less scattered. There is a subtle difference. The sun never needs switching on. Sometimes the clouds simply become thinner. Likewise, our self does not become enlightened. Mark my words. The fog becomes less convincing. That's it. So in the B-roll, you've seen slow transition towards the first mudra corresponding to the deepest center. So let us begin our gentle ascent back after the drilling process, or perhaps our equally gentle descent earlier. Because from the standpoint of awareness, ascent or descent, up and down, are merely useful coordinates. Inside an immeasurable stillness, we shall start not with the highest lotus, Guru Gayatri, but with the deepest foundations, Mool Aadhar, root foundation, exactly where every great engineer begins. A house construction with the foundation, because every skyscraper, every bridge, every launch vehicle for that matter, and every authentic contemplative journey shares one surprisingly humble secret: the invisible foundation always matters more than the visible structure. And Vārahi smiles knowingly because she has always specialized in foundations. Muladhara Devi, like Vinayaka. The 16 chakra elevator from bedrock to boundlessness. In the B-roll, you have observed me gently reclining on the hammock, camera moving slowly from the feet upwards, soft breeze through our triple V terrace forest. Now, before we begin our journey through these 16 centers, let us first remove one surprisingly common misunderstanding. Many of us imagine consciousness rather like climbing a corporate ladder. Promotion, 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 corner office, executive enlightenment. Congratulations. Advaita quietly laughs because awareness never climbs. Only attention moves. Awareness simply is. It exists everywhere, omnipresent. Think of an elevator. The elevator travels, attention travels. The building remains perfectly still. That's awareness. Likewise, attention travels, awareness never does. So today, our mudras are not magical switches. They are bookmarks, gentle reminders, helping our attention rest at different addresses within the same infinite awareness. In the B-roll, you see in the first mudra, but at the Pathala, the reverse, it is this: the deepest foundation, not evil, not forbidden, not somewhere down below the feet, simply the densest appearance of unconscious habit. Imagine the basement where we have thrown everything, We never wish to examine old fears, old embarrassments, old identities, and naturally the instruction manual, because nobody ever knows where that went. Instruction manuals for any of your gadgets. Every household has one, every mind too. Today, instead of pretending the basement does not exist, we simply switch on the lights. Darkness never argues with light, it quietly resigns. Number two, Rasatala. Here, attention notices emotional momentum, not emotion itself. Momentum, water flowing downhill, does not ask permission. Neither do emotional habits. When irritation repeatedly appears, we need not blame irritation. We simply become curious. What invisible slope is this emotion following? Engineering calls it gradient. Meditation calls it observation, witnessing. Same curiosity, different vocabulary. Number three, Mahatala, patterns, deep patterns, the kind we inherited long before we acquired our favorite smartphone. Families inherit eye color, voice, height, sometimes even identical ways of worrying. How thoughtful! Awareness quietly asks, can we lovingly acknowledge these patterns without becoming imprisoned by them? In the B roll, you would see my next mudra, which remains the same for all the Tala chakras. Tala Tala, let's look at compulsion. Automatically running yesterday's software on today's reality. Have we noticed how frequently we finish something else's sentence before they themselves know? Consider them as a thing rather than a body. What they intended to say, we don't seem to care. Apparently, our predictive algorithm, just like an AI, occasionally requires software updates. Fortunately, awareness never crashes. Only assumptions do. Number five, Suthala. Still the same mudra. Potential energy. What's the possibility? The spring, immense, before expansion. Every seed already contains an entire forest. Not because the forest is physically hidden inside, but because possibility is astonishing, astonishingly economical. Vithala, energy waiting for intelligent direction. A river without banks becomes a flood. The same river, guided intelligently, becomes civilization. Energy itself is rarely the problem. Direction usually is. Athala, finally, the threshold, the last quiet layer before Mooladhara. Notice we have not climbed anywhere. We have simply become progressively more and more conscious of progressively subtler tendencies of the BMI. In the B-roll, you notice the camera reaching the base of the spine, Mooladhara, traditional chakra mudra, Mooladhara. From this to this, now the adventure truly begins. It's the bottom-up approach. Most explanations stop after saying root chakra. Fair enough. But engineers immediately ask, root of what? The answer is delightful. Root of stability. Root locus method. Every magnificent tree owes silent gratitude to roots. Nobody photographs the root. Likewise, our deepest inner stability develops quietly, unseen, unheard, not through extraordinary experiences, but through extraordinarily consistent, ordinary living. Wake up, observe, smile, learn, serve, rest. Repeat. Nothing glamorous, everything transformative. And here we beautifully compare vārāhi to a powerful drilling machine, stabilizing the foundation before any ascent. Rather than destroying the earth, the image emphasizes penetrating, conditioning, and creating a clear channel for awareness. Number 9, Swa Adhisthana, right? The second traditional chakra mudra, creativity, fluidity, adaptability. Water never argues with the shape of the vessel. It simply flows. Perhaps psychological flexibility is consciousness imitating water. Number 10, Manipura, fire, transformation, digestion. Not merely digestion of food, but food for thought too. Can we digest criticism, failure, unexpected success, compliments? Interestingly, Many brilliant people digest spicy food more comfortably than praise. Yes, mark my words. Awareness quietly smiles. Everything must eventually become nourishment. Next, the Anahata Chakra at the heart, Pranamudra, the famous heart, except not merely emotion. The Sanskrit literally suggests the unstruck Anahata resonance, a music that requires no collision. Physics knows resonance. Music knows resonance. Consciousness knows resonance. Perhaps our entire life is gradually learning to hear what has always been silently present. In the B-roll, forest canopy and birds that you can see, Vishuddhi, come to purification at the throat, not moral purification, not becoming better, clarity, special purity, removing distortion, Vishesha Shuddhi, like polishing a telescope. The stars never changed, but they're better visible. Only the lens did change. The Agnya Chakra, observation, observing itself at the third eye. Most of our life, attention moves outward. Objects, people, ideas, goals. Now, attention quietly turns towards the observer. That tiny movement changes everything because for the first time, the observer becomes investigation. Number 14, Sahasrara. Not an ending, not a reward, simply the effortless recognition that awareness was never traveling. Only attention imagined the journey. Now, many systems stop here. Sahasrara, done. Our own contemplative exploration does not stop here because relationship itself also becomes sacred investigation. Matru Pitru, Dhyana Mudra, the living continuum, everything that has reached us through countless generations, genes, language, culture, learning, questions, curiosity, even the capacity to ask, who am I? Instead of carrying these as burdens, we carry them as gratitude, not ownership, acknowledgement. Number 16, Guru Gayatri. You can see beyond the terrace forest now, into the sky, that which silently illuminates every teacher, every teaching, every discovery, every insight, and every question. Not another destination, rather, the endless openness within which all destinations appear and disappear. Now, look back. Did we really travel through 16 places from the base of the feet to the top? Or did awareness simply illuminate 16 perspectives of one indivisible reality? That is the subtle elegance of our rishis repeatedly hinting at. The journey was never vertical. That's why I'm lying down on the hammock. Only our attention was. So it doesn't matter what position, what pose you are in, as long as you're comfortable. And perhaps the happiest sadhakas walk surprisingly lightly, effortlessly, like wow, because eventually we discover that the elevator, the building, the passenger, and the destination have always been the same awareness, not boring, playing with different names, enjoying itself. We fade into the forest ambience before transitioning to the next level. Bhavanopanishad, the user manual hidden inside the machine. In the B-roll, you have already observed slow close-ups of my hands, assuming the next and next mudras in the forest ambience as the hammock gently sways. Now, let us return to the sentence that inspired today's entire episode for me. The Bhavanopanishad presents the beautiful expression vārāhi pitru rūpa kurukulla bali devata mata. Now, if we immediately begin asking which goddess, which tradition, which ritual, we may accidentally miss the far more fascinating question. And what's that? Why? Why would an Upanishad choose relationship to explain consciousness? After all, an Upanishad could simply have written pure consciousness exists. End of chapter. Very efficient, rather boring. Instead, it speaks through relationships, because relationships are the laboratory where our imagined individuality becomes visible. The greatest optical illusion. Let me propose something. Our greatest illusion is probably not mistaking a rope for a snake, like it's repeated in Vedanta. That happens only occasionally, but it's an analogy. Our greatest illusion is mistaking our current personality for our permanent identity. That illusion runs 24 hours a day. We say, I am an engineer, I am a professor, I am successful, I am unsuccessful, I am spiritual, I am ordinary. Notice something curious. Every sentence begins identically, I am. The ending keeps changing. The beginning never does. Advaita quietly asks, what exactly is this I? Before the sentence finishes. That is where the Upanishads begin smiling, naughtily. Pitrurupa. Hero, you see the mudra, gently moves towards the heart. The word Pitru, most people immediately think father. Reasonable. But let us momentarily remove biology. What does a father symbolically represent? Direction, structure, stability, accountability. The bridge must stand, come what may, period. The aircraft must fly, come what may, period. The mathematics must close. Reality does not negotiate with poor engineering. Likewise, awareness quietly insists upon internal coherence. If our actions, our thoughts, our speech, and our understanding all point in different directions, attention scatters. Not because awareness punishes us, but because incoherence naturally dissipates energy, increase in entropy. Physics already knows this. A laser is powerful. Why? Because billions of photons cooperate, scatter them randomly, and the laser is no longer a laser. It becomes an ordinary torchlight. Perhaps our attention also becomes laser-like when inner contradiction gradually dissolves. Mata, now comes the beautiful balance. Ma, ta, or ma and ta. If structure alone existed, life would become mechanical. If compassion alone existed, nothing would ever mature. Reality beautifully integrates both. Every great scientist has required discipline. Every great artist has required freedom. Every flourishing ecosystem contains both order and spontaneity. Apparently, consciousness enjoys symmetry. Kurukulla, next word in our mantra. Now, this magnificent word, most explanations immediately move towards esoteric symbolism. Let us first notice its psychological elegance. Have we ever tried forcing ourselves to become peaceful? Interesting experiment. Usually unsuccessful. The more aggressively we chase stillness, the faster our thoughts begin jogging, running, accelerating. Attention cannot be bullied. It can only be gently attracted. That is why our video beautifully describes Gurukulla as a complementary transformative principle rather than an opposing one. In symbolic language, it represents the attractive and reflective movement of awareness rather than brute force. Notice the elegance. One aspect steadies, one aspect invites, one aspect provides direction, one aspect provides graceful movement. Together, they resemble two perfectly balanced wings. Try flying with only one. Even birds would object. Bali, the last word. Now, perhaps the most misunderstood word too. Many immediately imagine giving something away as bali, sacrifice. Let us investigate more carefully beyond Abrahamic performances. What exactly can awareness give away? Can awareness lose awareness? Because that's all that it has, nothing else. Impossible. then what is actually offered? Not awareness. Misidentification. Every time we honestly recognize I was mistaken, something remarkable happens. Nothing valuable disappeared. Only confusion became lighter. That is genuine offering. No problem. Every scientist performs it. Every engineer performs it. Every mathematician performs it. Every sincere contemplator performs it. Outer and inner difference. Discover a better explanation. The previous explanation gracefully retires. Nobody died. Only ignorance became unemployed. May ignorance remain permanently unemployed, always on the register of the employment. Now something extraordinary happens. Notice how naturally the entire sentence transforms. It is no longer describing someone outside us. Vārāhi. It is describing what awareness already does within us, here and now. Katham.in. Structure, compassion, steady excavation, gentle attraction, progressive clarification. Everything working together exactly like a beautifully designed aerospace system. A launch vehicle does not contain one miraculous component alone. Its reliability emerges because every subsystem supports every other subsystem. They work integrated. Likewise, our contemplative life does not depend upon one spectacular experience. Masagya. No, it matures through beautifully integrated ordinary awareness, which brings us to Nyasa. In the B-roll, you've seen slow demonstration of one mudra at a time. Many people ask, what exactly is Nyasa, as in Vinyasa? Suppose I handed an engineering student a magnificent aircraft, but forgot to label any switches in the cockpit. The aircraft remains perfect. The student remains confused. Nyasa is wonderfully similar. like Karanyasa that we did. It is not creating power. It is not importing divinity. Or the Anganyasa that we did. It is consciously mapping attention onto what has always been present, like placing labels on an already functioning operating system. Suddenly, navigation becomes easier. The machine never changed. Understanding did change. The same insight applies to Vini Yoga. Vini Yoga. Not assigning power, assigning context, not changing reality, changing how intelligently we engage reality. This distinction is subtle but profound, revolutionary, because once we recognize this, or rather recognize this, our contemplative practice stops becoming an attempt to become someone else or something else. Instead, it becomes the joyful process of gradually ceasing to pretend false identities, to be someone we never truly were in the first place. Never ever. And perhaps that is the greatest humor in all of Advaita. We spend decades searching everywhere for what has patiently accompanied us through every single search, every lifetime. Like wearing spectacles while searching for our spectacles, or holding the car keys while searching for the car keys. Happens many a times. Absent-mindedness. Consciousness has an excellent sense of humor, my dear friends. Fortunately, our rishis did too. The Sanskrit literature is full of humor. Now, we stayed close to the spirit of my original intent while making one important methodological distinction. In places where my original observation equates Mahakali to dark energy and Mahakala to dark matter, I have instead framed them for now as contemplative metaphors rather than scientific identities. That preserves the philosophical richness while avoiding claims that contemporary physics has established or accepted such equivalences. It also strengthens the presentation for a scientifically trained audience. Many of mine are, because the analogy is then presented as an illuminating bridge rather than as an empirical assertion. But in the depth of my heart, I actually experience it not as a mere analogy or metaphor, but as the ultimate reality that the so-called scientific world within quotes is yet to discover using its currently inadequate methodologies. Let's now turn to mantra, nyasa, and mudra. Programming the most sophisticated operating system ever built. In the B-roll, you would have already observed the camera slowly circling around me on the hammock, intercutting with close-ups of leaves, lotus, butterflies, and each mudra. Now, let me ask something. Suppose tomorrow morning someone gifts us the world's most powerful supercomputer, quantum processors, unlimited memory, infinite battery, perfect operating system. Wonderful. One tiny question. Tiny question. Do we know how to use it? Because possessing and accessing are two entirely different things. Many of us own extraordinary smartphones, yet we still use them mostly for messaging, weather forecasts, and occasionally finding where we misplaced the smartphone itself using another smartphone or an Apple Watch. Perhaps our own consciousness deserves slightly better utilization. Our rishis certainly thought so. That is why they developed what may well be one of humanity's oldest attention technologies. Not technologies made of silicon or carbon, but technologies made of awareness. First, what exactly is a mantra? Many people imagine a mantra as a magical sentence. Let us look again. Suppose I strike a tuning fork. Another tuning fork across the room begins vibrating. Nothing traveled except resonance. Physics smiles. Music smiles. Perhaps our contemplative traditions were smiling too. A mantra need not be viewed as a magical password. Rather, it may be understood as a carefully refined pattern of sound that helps stabilize, focus, and resonate attention. Different traditions describe this differently, but the practical invitation is the same. Observe what sustained, intentional sound does to the mind. Notice How wonderfully scientific that question becomes. Instead of asking, do I believe? We ask, what happens when I investigate? That, my dear friends, is a far more interesting experiment. Trust me, I've done it and know it. The B-roll has been the close-up of my gentle breathing. Now comes the second technology, Nyasa. Literally placing, positioning, installing. Imagine opening Google Maps. The very first question is never, where are we going? It first asks, where are we now? Right now. Without present coordinates, future navigation becomes impossible or even troublesome. Exactly. Nyasa quietly asks, where is attention, the body mind intellect, resting right now? That is why our Bharatiya Vedic Sanatana Dharma, eternal as it is, contains such detailed Karanyasa and Shad Anganyasa sequences, with each mantra paired to a specific gesture and location on the body, the fingers, uttered in an Advaitic spirit. These become methods for intentionally directing awareness rather than merely performing external actions. Notice the elegance, nothing supernatural, nothing irrational, unlogical, illogical, simply systematic placement of attention, attention, attention. The greatest discoveries often appear astonishingly simple after someone else discovers them. Eureka! Then comes mudra. Now, this is delightful. Many people think mudras possess mysterious powers. Perhaps. But first, let us notice something beautifully obvious. Have we ever recognized someone we love from a distance simply by the way they walk? Not the face, not the voice, just movement. Body and mind constantly influence each other. Psychologically, already we know this. Neuroscience knows this. The subject of psychiatry knows this. Sports science knows this. Musicians know this. Actors, of course, have to know this. Our contemplative ancestors certainly knew this. posture, breathing, gesture, attention, and perception, again from the Agnya, continuously interact with each other. Therefore, our mudras need not be viewed as magical hand positions. They become beautifully efficient attention stabilizers, bookmarks inside awareness. Exactly what we have been using throughout today's journey. In the B-roll, you've been observing gentle sequences of my several mudras, 10 out of 16 to be precise. Now let us return to something that fascinated me when I first encountered the Bhavanopanishad out of the 108 Upanishads. Its language never behaves like a philosophy textbook. Instead, it behaves like engineering documentation, subsystem, 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 integration, synthesis. Nothing exists independently. Everything cooperates. Modern aerospace engineering calls this systems integration. Ecologists call it ecosystems. Neuroscientists call it distributed networks. Advaita simply smiles and says, exactly. There never were isolated parts, only one reality, appearing as many, beauty in diversity, which brings us to perhaps the most misunderstood word of all, power, Shakti, Devi. Many seekers wish to acquire power, siddhis. Our traditions quietly ask a different question. Can awareness ever become more aware? No, it's already infinite. Anything you add to infinity, can infinity become slightly more infinite, more unlimited, more borderless? Also, no. Then what exactly increases during sadhana? Why should we do it on a regular basis? Not awareness, my dear friends. It's always infinity, always has been, will be. Transparency. Imagine a dusty mirror or a dusty camera lens. Do we manufacture a new reflection instead of that mirror? No, not that rich. We simply remove what obscured, what was already present. Awareness does not evolve. Recognition does evolve. Perhaps This single insight removes enormous pressure. We are not trying to manufacture our highest nature. We are simply becoming progressively less convincing to ourselves. The fictional character called I. Interestingly, that character works extremely hard, like donkeys, constantly updating its resume, its social media, its reputation, its opinions, its achievements. Meanwhile, awareness quietly watches the entire performance with remarkable patience. Today's Shanaishchara, slow movie. If awareness could laugh, I suspect it would laugh very gently, not at us, with us, because eventually we realize the actor, the audience, the theater, the script, and even the standing ovation have all appeared inside the same immeasurable awareness screenplay. In the B-roll, the camera slowly rises above the terrace forest towards the evening sky. Now we are finally ready for the climax. Not another mantra. We have had ample of the amount of them today already. Not another mudra. We had too many, 10 of them in fact. Not another chakra. We had 16 of them already. A question. Just a question. Perhaps the oldest question humanity has ever asked. Who is noticing all of this? Remain there for just a moment without answering. I'm not either, because the instant we answer, we have produced another thought. Instead, notice that which quietly notices even the thought. There, that silent recognition is where our final journey begins. The greatest cosmic joke and the simplest 7-day experiment for you, me, all of us. My B-roll, you would have already noticed, observed, witnessed the golden hour sunlight through our triple V terrace forest. The invisible gentle breeze made evident through the dynamics of the forest while I'm resting quietly in the hammock in silence for a few seconds. Sometimes the universe has an extraordinary sense of timing. Today, the calendar appears spectacularly crowded. Gupta Varahi Navaratri, Ashada Shukravara yesterday, Adi Velli also yesterday, Ketu Maga Nakshatra yesterday, Vinayaka Chaturthi yesterday, leading to Pañcami today, Vyatipata Vanija, the yoga and the karana. It almost resembles a cosmic orchestra, a symphony where every musician decides to play simultaneously. Beautiful, as long as it is synchronous. But here is my favorite question. Suppose we knew absolutely nothing about today's calendar, the Panchanga, the 5 parts. No Panchanga, no astronomy, no astrology, no festivals, no names, no traditions. Would awareness still remain aware? Of course, that is the real miracle, the dharma of consciousness. Everything else appears inside that miracle. Perhaps our ancestors, Pitrus, never intended these remarkable calendrical combinations to make us dependent upon special dates. Perhaps they intended exactly the opposite. Perhaps special dates were lovingly designed to remind us of what never depends upon dates. That changes everything. The terrace forest in the bureau, you see close-ups of flowers, insects, leaves, flora and fauna, water droplets, the Panchabhutas. Many friends ask why we created this little terrace forest. But Radha Vasantavanam, honestly, it was never meant to become a garden. Gardens, like trimmed beards, are usually controlled. Forests, like my beard, cooperate. Gardens often demonstrate our preferences of the designer, gardener. Forests patiently demonstrate nature's intelligence rather than our limited intellect. A gardener asks, what should I remove? Weeds? A forest quietly asks, what naturally belongs together will remain together as long as it needs to. Exactly the same transformation gradually happens inside us. Instead of constantly asking, what should I eliminate? I never do DVDing in the triple V. Awareness begins asking, what harmonizes naturally when I stop interfering because nothing is a weight for me. Remarkably, that question requires much less effort and produces much greater profound peace. The greatest cosmic joke now, may I share my favorite suspicion, doubt. I think the universe has been gently teasing us for millennia. Just now, we spend decades looking for enlightenment. Awareness quietly watches the search. We search for freedom, moksha, mumukta, nirvana. Freedom quietly watches the search. हम तो यही पढ़े हैं, किसको ढूंढ रहा है? We search for truth. Truth patiently observes. இவன் ஆத்தரா பார்க்கறான், சத்தியம் நம்ம இங்கதான்டா இருக்கிறோம். The search, rather like a fish attending expensive seminars on discovering water, ನೀರು ಹುಡುಕೋ ಮೀನುಗಳು, or someone wearing spectacles, as I already mentioned, while desperately searching for their spectacles. How much more ludicrous can we become? Or perhaps my favorite, an aerospace engineer using finite element analysis to calculate the structural stability of the hammock before relaxing for 5 minutes. Sometimes experience is considerably faster than computation, intuition, insight. Even engineers, they may not admit it, occasionally need that reminder. The 7-day experiment for us, you, me, all of us. Now, before we conclude, let us perform a genuine experiment. I never conclude, give only takeaways. Not next year, not during the next Navaratri. There are 4 of them, by the way, every year. 2 of them cooked like this one. Beginning tomorrow morning, the 6th day of Navaratri, for 7 days, beyond Navaratri, nothing complicated, nothing secret, all the way to Guru Purnima, nothing expensive, just 7 tiny investigations to beyond the Ekadashi fast. Day 1, notice how often our attention wanders without invitation. Not to stop it, just notice. Awareness never wanders, attention wanders, mind wanders. Day 2, notice how frequently our body responds before our thoughts even finish forming in the first place. Observe muscular memories without correcting. Day 3, choose one conversation. Listen completely, totally, fully, without mentally composing our reply, reaction, or response. This is surprisingly difficult, which makes it surprisingly educational, pedagogical. Day 4. Spend 5 uninterrupted minutes with a tree, not photographing it. Click, 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 trigger happy. Not identifying its species with Google Lens, not posting it, simply allowing two extraordinarily ancient living systems to coexist. What you breathe out, it breathes in, and vice versa. The 5th day, whenever irritation appears, instead of asking, who caused this? Ask, what expectation has just become visible? That single question can transform an entire day. Day 6. While assuming any comfortable mudra, allow attention to gently travel through the 16 centers we explored. You don't need to change from one to the other like how I do. You don't need to remember if you can't. Do nothing. Expect nothing. Observe. Observe everything. And the final day, day 7. Sit quietly. Ask only one question. Who noticed all 6 previous days? Then do something which modern civilization rarely encourages. Remain silent for just a few minutes, not because mauna or silence is superior to sound, but because only silence allows us to hear what noise cannot reveal. Returning to vārāhi, now perhaps we understand why today's episode was never really about vārāhi, nor about calendars, nor about astronomy, nor even about the 16 chakras or the 10 mudras. They were beautiful invitations, ingenious educational models, indigenous to compassionately designed by our rishis, extraordinarily perceptive human beings that they were, who recognized or recognized that the infinite or infinite is difficult to discuss directly. So they offered, Vedavyasa in particular, Krishna Dvaipayana, they offered us stories, symbols, the Ashtadash Puranas, sound, the Itihasas, gesture, mantra, mudra, breath, pranayama, attention, dhyana, dharana before that, not as destinations, as bridges for pratyahara. Eventually, every bridge fulfills its purpose, not when we admire it, when we cross it. Final reflection, perhaps the most beautiful sentence I have ever encountered, still remains. Tat tvam asi, that thou art. Not become that. You are already that. Not believe that. That is the truth. Experientially. Not worship that, because that is same as you. Simply that thou art. You are the same as Brahman, Parabrahman, Atma, Paramatma in the language I personally find even more joyful. We have never been traveling from ourselves towards ourself. Grammatically incorrect but spiritually correct. We have only been gradually laughing at the mistaken identity, ego. We accidentally adopted along the way these identities, body, mind, intellect. And perhaps that laughter is the gentlest expression of wisdom, not knowledge or intellect, but intelligence. In the B-roll, you would have been already observing my iPhone camera slowly pulling back while I continue resting quietly in the hammock with the terrace forest filling the frame and fading to the evening sky. Namaskaram, that yours me. Jai Hind. Until our next joyful investigation together, for us to continue, not collecting more information and experiences even, but becoming progressively more available, aware and conscious to the awareness within which every experience already appears.